Well, good afternoon. I guess it's afternoon, 12:05. I'm Carolyn Moore, and I, like Jill said, am the editor-in-chief of a website called Her View from Home, which I can tell you a little bit about here in a little bit. I thought I'd give you a little bit of background maybe about who I am too. I'm used to the turning the camera and whatever, because my background is TV. So I have been in journalism. I've been doing the Her View from Home thing online for about 6 years, but I started in journalism at KXMC like before I could hold a pencil. So my dad was the news director for many years at KX, Jim Olson, and my brothers Perry and Tim also worked there. So we had many of us that worked there. I started probably when I was a really terrible employee when I first started, because I was like 6 years old. I used to put away tapes. If you remember tapes, all the commercials were on tapes. Yeah, and I couldn't reach the top 2 shelves, so I was really, really a lousy employee. But I used to get a nickel from the control room operator after I got that done. So that was fun. I used to do that and then hang around with Gene Shemp and all the oldies that were at KX, Mike Elm and all those people. So a lot of the Minot people would remember those names. So started with that and then eventually ended up on air, as did my brothers. I think I started reporting. My older brother Perry was, I think his first time on air was he had to do highlights of himself playing basketball, because he was playing high school basketball, because we all started when we were very young. So it was a family-owned station back then. So it was a little bit different than what goes on right now. And then my younger brother started, he did weather. So I would be doing news, Tim would do weather, Perry did sports, my dad did everything. We always said that one of our regrets was that we didn't have an all Olsen newscast. We never did it, and we should have. just as a joke, that would have been good. And David Wrighton, who a lot of people probably know the Wrighton family, they're big in the Hustfest and involved in starting KXMC and KXMB and all the other KX stations. He used to kind of grumble, come back in the newsroom, and how many Olsens do I have on the payroll? And for the record, it was only 4. 4 was ever the only, the most we ever had, but that was a great experience. So after there, I went to college at the University of Mary. So I'm a UMary graduate, studied communications there and was the editor of our newspaper there at UMary. Did a lot of working on the side, would come back and work weekends and summers at KXMC. Worked at KXMB down there also for a bit. And then that was kind of what I did throughout college, and then got married, and my husband was a pharmacy student. So he was down at NDSU in Fargo. Finished, he was in his final year when I went down there. So then I worked at WDAY. So I was the first news anchor down there for a time, which still in the family was my dad. Jim did the voiceover intro. So every morning I would come on at 6 and it would be my dad introducing me, which was sort of funny. So, and Perry at the time, my brother Perry was on the morning show with Joe Goldaddy here. They were very popular morning show people. So my dad used to joke that he had his kids on the air from 6 to 7 a.m. in like 6 states and part of Canada or something from 6 to 7 a.m. So that was kind of a funny little thing. So then let's see, after that, we had a baby. My husband and I had a baby, and we moved back to Minot to be closer to family. He works now at Trinity Hospital, which he's in the throes of the move right now. I was telling Jill it's great, but it's a busy time there for everybody. So he's the pharmacy supervisor down there. And just we'd been back and forth in Minot before then, kind of was here for a front row seat for the flood of 2011, because my dad and my brother and Sean Sitma at the time were all working and on the air for, I think it was 173 consecutive hours or something around the clock. So that was and then our house, my dad's house and my brother's house were all in the flooded. So that was an interesting event just from a journalism standpoint to see how that all turned out. So ended up back here though after that. In a few years I did some freelancing, and then 6 years ago ended up at Her View from Home. So that was it's a submissions-based site. If you're not familiar with it, it's anybody can write. We do marriage, motherhood, faith, grief, and like friendship, relationship stuff. And it's just we like to try to give anybody a voice. So if you have a story that you want to write and submit, you send it in. And my role is I first started just doing some help for a few hours a week. And then couple months later, ended up, Leslie Means is the owner and the founder of the site, just said kind of out of the blue, we hardly knew each other. She lives in Kearney, Nebraska, and said, I need somebody to help to be my editor, and I think it should be you. So I said, okay, that sounds good. So I ended up doing that, becoming the editor about six years ago or so. Here's lunch. Thank you. And so I've been doing that now for yeah, I think it's almost 5.5, almost 6 years ago. So when I started, we had about 40,000 Facebook followers, I think. And now we're up to about 1.5 million. So it's really had a lot of growth online. Now that's before the last, anybody who's on Facebook and working on that knows that Mark Zuckerberg is sort of cracking down on everything. So it's been a little stagnant lately, but that's, so that kind of is where the book comes in. So from the time I started, we talked about doing a book, kind of an anthology or a compilation of stories, just because we have so many stories. And really when it took shape was 3 years ago, when you may remember a little thing called COVID going on, and everybody was sort of scrambling to figure out how to sort of reinvent their businesses, especially when you're online and having to still drive traffic and make revenue. And so we thought this is probably the time to look into the book. So we really started doing that. So we started it the old-fashioned way with a book. I bought a copy of the Guide to Literary Agents was our first step. So I read that when we took a trip, actually, my family and I did, down to Florida. We drove. It was 32 hours with 4 kids at the time, which was really fun. But anyway, so I spent my whole time reading this book and searching out agents that we were interested in and putting together a proposal and a query letter. So we got that ready, sent out some query letters in January of 2021, and ended up signing with Folio Literary Agency out of New York in February, I think, of that month. So we actually have 2 co-agents that work on our behalf, and then we worked on putting together the proposal for this book, So God Made a Mother, which, like I said, I kind of describe it like Chicken Soup for the Soul a little bit. It's in that it's an anthology. It's a little more maybe updated, I don't know, or it's just kind of it's just stories, really. We always talk about that the stories are the powerful part, the thing that kind of connects everybody together. And so we worked on putting out a call for submissions, which we first went to our website, Her View from Home Contributors was where we did this first book from. So we opened up submissions there, and we got about 538 submissions, something like that. And then Leslie and I read them all and spent a lot of time on Zoom and back and forth, kind of comparing notes and trying to shape. We had met with by that time we had signed with the publisher. We had taken the proposal out, and it ended up going to auction, which was a fun experience. So there were 6 publishing houses that wanted the contract for the book. So we had a kind of exciting day doing all of that. And then the publisher that won the bid was Tyndale House Publishers in Chicago. So we went to Chicago and kind of honed the focus of it and just the layout of it, and then got the submission. So Leslie and I went through all of them, spent a lot of time back and forth and kind of setting them up to try to get a real diverse voice throughout it. So the book is set up so that Leslie kind of guides the reader through it. She has a piece at there are 10 sections, and she's got the piece at the beginning of each one. And then there are maybe, I think it's anywhere from 7 to 10 other pieces in that section that are all kind of related to their like attributes of mothers is kind of how we ended up separating it out. So that was an interesting experience to kind of narrow that down, because we're a very small staff. It's 3 of us really who are full-time. That's Leslie and then me, and then we have she does kind of graphics and creative shop stuff and all the pretty things that I can do the words, I can't do the like make it look nice things. So she handles all that, which is great. So we are quite a small group. So then the book came out April 18th. Felt like it took forever to get here, but April 18th, and it has been received very well. We last week ended up on the Wall Street Journal list on number 9 for nonfiction bestsellers, which was amazing. And then the Publishers Weekly nonfiction list too, which is more of an industry specific thing, but that was number 8 that we were on there. So we'll see. They come out again today, so I don't know if we'll stay on it or fall off of it. It's kind of a moving target, so we'll see what happens. And working with some big retailers, trying to get it in store in some other places. It is in store at Barnes & Noble throughout the country, Books A Million, some of those places, lots of small bookstores, and they're all selling out of it. So that's a good problem to have. But publisher just sent me an email about an hour ago that said the second print run is arriving earlier than expected, which is good news. So we're trying to get them all restocked and supplied. So it's been just kind of an interesting, it's a real interesting industry to be part of, because it was something kind of foreign to me. in a way, and yet we at Herbie from Home are also a publisher. So we kind of do a lot of similar things in that we're publishing pieces is just strictly on an online platform, and we do it in a faster turnaround kind of a setup. So it's similar but different, and it's been yeah, it's interesting, and I really love what I do because I like being able to just tell stories and hear interesting stories. I think that's a lot of people who, you know, we get into communications because you like stories and you like meeting interesting people and telling interesting stories and seeing how it kind of connects everybody, because it's not the paycheck that we do it for. So that's been yeah, I don't know, an interesting thing. So hopefully that helps overview. So
I'm going to see if we have any
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
If anybody has any questions, if you want to just unmute yourself and ask them or put them in the chat.
I don't know if you can see chat up there. Chat too, there you go. There, okay. Becky says, did submitters whose articles were selected for the book get paid? Yes, they did. So that was something that was important to us. At Herbie from Home, anyone who has a piece selected, you make a bare minimum $10. It goes up from there based on views, website views. That's one of the important things of our just mission, is to kind of not only give people a voice, and really it's women. We have a handful of men who write for us every now and then, but really it's women. Lots of times it's moms, just to give them a little something that says your work is valuable, what your time is valuable, because it's easy to just kind of go, nobody cares what I think or what I have to say. And we have a lot of varied, I mean, it's a lot of varied stories. They're not all happiness and, you know, oh, it was so fun today. We have a lot of hard pieces. In fact, our probably largest category that I get submissions in is in like miscarriage and grief and losing parents and things like that. So that's important to us too, that we have a space for people to kind of connect there and tell those stories. And we do talk about faith. It's not something, we're not a teaching site. So it's not like here's this Bible verse and say what, you know, this means and how that applies to you. It's more just, you can talk about your faith if you'd like. I mean, you don't need to, you don't have to. It's, we kind of call it like a zero entry pool, like wherever you are, you can be whoever you are, wherever you are, just tell us your story. That's the kind of the part that connects us all. So let's see, what kind of copyright issues do you have to go through with submitters? So we had them all sign a contract, and they sign a contract when they write for us too. We don't get the copyright per se of we get the right to use it, and they can't republish it on another section. The bigger copyright, not copyright, but trademark. We actually have trademarked So God Made. It's called. Some of you probably remember Paul Harvey giving a speech way back in the 80s, I think, in a commercial that was a So God Made a Farmer. And we had a little bit of back and forth with them just to kind of settle out because they never trademarked that, which was an interesting oops, I think, on their part. So we worked with Paul Harvey Jr. and got that all ironed out. So we will never put out a So God Made a Farmer book, and they will never do any So God Made a Mother stuff. So we're all just kind of in agreement, sitting at the table together. So that's a good way. That all ended fine. We got it done kind of the Midwest way, you know, just sort of, all right, let's sit down and make sure this works. So let's see, what is the Facebook group called? Is called Her View from Home. So it's the same as our website, herviewfromhome.com. Yeah, it just has a bunch of various things anybody can write if they want to write. Let's see, what do you think made Her View from Home boom like it did? Marketing, word of mouth? That's a good question. I think probably when COVID happened, we did grow quite a bit. We were already growing, but I think everybody went so online at that time that I think that helped a little bit in getting everyone. It was an easy medium to reach people because people weren't necessarily going out to places and, you know, face-to-face kind of stuff. But really, I don't know that there's a good answer for that. I don't know. It's just, we always talk about that at the end of the day, content is king. I mean, you can do whatever you want for fancy marketing and you know, pretty pictures and whatever, get on TV shows. But if you don't have good stories or good content that will keep people there, then it's not going to do anything. So we really do focus on publishing good, solid content. And yet, you know, everybody has varying levels of writers and skill. And so we try to kind of, you know, maintain their voices, but still we're going to make sure the grammar's right and all that stuff. So So I don't know. I think it's just probably a combination of all of those things that it's, and now when we released the book, we did pick the release date to be around Mother's Day on purpose. So I think that helped right now, just as far as launching it well. And we worked really hard at making, I guess I don't know if I showed, here's the book. You can see it. It's backwards, but you know. So you can find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and lots of actually in store they're carrying it. I know our Barnes & Noble here in Minot is carrying it, and they've sold out of it a bunch of times. And the last time I was in there, he said, well, I have 40 more coming because I'm trying to get them. So, and I think they're in stock today. I think they just got them back. So let's see, what's the coolest thing about putting together the book? It has been such an interesting experience, just meeting all of the people. I'd say I love meeting people. So I think that's been really fun, getting to meet, I actually haven't met our agents in person, but we do a lot of talking all the time, and that's fun because they have a Folio Literary Agency is kind of a fun one to look up if you're interested in that kind of thing, because one of our agents manages the literary estate for Mother Teresa, for example. So it's like there's interesting history and background. It's one of the oldest agencies in the country, I believe, in New York for sure. So it's fun to meet those kinds of people. It was fun to go down to Chicago and really meet the publishing house and see how that all works. They have a lot of moving parts going on consistently. So that's been fun. And it's just, the best part really is just how excited I think all of the contributors have been too. We actually 3 weeks ago went down to Omaha and had a launch party that we put together for the contributors and invited them all to come with a guest. And so we had about 60 of the 89 contributors who came down to Omaha from all over the country, flew in, spent more than they made on their essays, I'm sure, to get there in a lot of the cases. I mean, we had just a nice an evening kind of a party with a toast and everything. And that was really cool because it was a testament, I think, just to the community and the strength of those stories, because a lot of us hadn't met each other before. But when you get in a room and you've read kind of your deepest, darkest secrets, sometimes there's a lot of hard pieces, there's a lot of happy pieces, there's everything in between. So you kind of know each other. It's like you skip all the small talk, you just kind of know what makes you tick and what you're. So that has been fun. Let's see. Our stories shared as blog posts, longer articles, or right on Facebook as opposed to some, which is better. I don't know if you know what's better, you can tell me, because we're trying to figure out what Mark Zuckerberg wants right now. This is the thing. We share them on the website. So they're published at 6 a.m. every day. Right now, we have such a back catalog too of pieces just because the website's 11 years old. So I've been 6 years on it, but the site is 11 years old. So we have a vast library of articles and pieces to pull from, but we do publish 2 new ones every day at 6 a.m. and we share those as links. And then we do a lot of cross promotion on Instagram, making memes and doing smaller things like micros, they're pictures with the words. And it really varies. It's a total crapshoot as far as what works one month and what works doesn't. I hate to say that, but that's kind of the nature of the beast when you're working online. It's not as predictable as you would like it to be. So it's a lot of adjusting, and partially why we wanted to do the book, we wanted to diversify a little bit and not rely solely just on online for bringing in income. And a book is still, I think people still, Jill, you probably know that, people still like to pick up something, I think, even though everybody is on their phones and, but you still like to hold a book in your hands or read a newspaper in your hands and see the printed words. So I think that was something we wanted to it's a little bit more evergreen. That was important too when we were putting it together, to have it be something that was real evergreen, that could not be dated to say, oh, this came out in 2023. Like, we want you to be able to put that on the coffee table in 10 years and pick it up and put it down and say, oh, I wonder when this was written or when this was done. So how do you contribute to the site before being offered your current position? I'm jealous. I know, it was such a weird, it's a funny story. We talk about that it was kind of a God thing, we say, because it was, it really on paper doesn't make any sense. You're right. I told Leslie it was about 3 months. I think I had sent in maybe an article or two, which she liked, and she and I have very similar backgrounds. So Leslie worked in local TV in Nebraska, in Kearney, and in Texas for a while. So she and I, very similar. We're anchoring morning shows at the same time in different states, and just when you have that kind of shared background, you kind of understand something about maybe the work ethic or the, she knew she could tell me to do something and I'd get it done and I'd do it quickly. And so I think we kind of just hit it off. So that was good. And I don't know, it was just the right time. It was the right time. She needed some help. I was there. I was kind of looking for something to keep doing some freelancing and other things. So and my background, like I had the editing background too from the newspaper and things like that. So it was I told her, good thing I didn't turn out to be a serial killer at the end of the day, because this worked out well. So, and we hadn't met each other in person. We didn't meet until probably, I don't remember if it was the next summer or 2 after that. It was quite a while later that we do we talk all the time, every day, but it's mostly online. So yeah, it is a good job. I do love the job. It's good. Let's see if there's anybody. I think that answered everybody. If anybody has any other questions. Let's see.
I'm just wondering how many submissions you get and what's the acceptance rate?
Yeah, that's interesting. I should look and actually figure that out sometime, shouldn't I? I would say the acceptance rate is probably in the 30 to 40% range, maybe 30%. We have some who come back and keep writing for us, and we know it's funny because the online blogging world seems really big, like that the internet is vast. It's really not. It's very small. Everybody knows everybody. They're connected. It's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. It doesn't take much to say, oh, I know this person, or she wrote here, or this article or that article. So it's a lot of kind of know each other. And yet at the same time, we have a lot of new people always coming in. And that's another piece of what we do is we like to foster those new writers, and those new people are coming in, maybe looking for something to do, something maybe they used to work in a professional setting in communications, and now they're going, no, I don't know what to do. I got laid off, or I'm raising kids, or I'm trying to cut back and do something more for myself. So I'd say it's less than half, I would say. It varies from time of year. Like right now is a little bit low because everybody's busy. So right now we're not getting quite the volume of submissions we get, maybe more towards the fall, when people are kind of back at everything. But and it's really, it's a blind submission. They put their name on there, but we don't really know a lot about them when they come in. So it's really driven on the story that comes in to see, have we read this a million times? How many articles about mom guilt can I read? So we look to be a little bit, interesting, but they're some of the best articles we've had are, real story driven. So they are a little personal, but I always tell people, if you can make it relatable, we want to hear your story, but if you can make it relatable and help me maybe understand you, or see a little of myself, or think about that in me, then that's a great story to publish. So so we kind of go, do I have a favorite story in the book? Favorite story or article? People ask us that. I really don't, because they're all so different. It's like asking, so we finally decided it's like asking if you have a favorite kid. Like, I love them all equally. Some of them are more powerful than others, and I always kind of relate maybe to that a little more than some of the more fluff type, not that they're throwaway or anything like that, but I appreciate a story where someone is really showing you themselves, or maybe I don't know. I think it's brave when people do that too. We tell our writers that too, that it's really a brave thing that they put these words out there and publish and put their names next to it, because it's that can be scary to, you're a little bit anonymous because you're behind a keyboard or you're behind a whatever, but really you're not, because you've got family and friends maybe who will pick it up and read it. I know we have a piece in here even about a mom who, when she was a teenager or 19, had an abortion, and it was coming to terms with that later in life, telling their other kids, just kind of wrestling with that later, because now she has 3 kids, and so it was a really powerful story. And we've had a lot of people tell us about that one, that they didn't expect that to be in a book with God in the title. But like I said, it's not a teaching, preaching kind of thing. It's really just everybody has a story and struggles with different things and goes through different things, and it's sort of how it impacts you later on in life. So Let's see. So I think that answers that. I know it doesn't answer. That's a non-answer, right? Okay, story. So does anybody else have any other questions?
I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how a typical day or week looks like for you and how this job fits into
Yeah.
flexibility with your own family.
Right, because I have 5 kids. So we have, our oldest is 14 and our youngest is 1. And so I have, and a couple, 3 in between. So it is it's flexible. A lot of these jobs online are that you can kind of work on them on your own time. I'm a night owl anyway, so I like to work at night. That's when I do a lot of reading submissions and I do editing work. So I do, I have an assistant now too who does some of the front end editing, but I still go in and do the final edit on everything. So it's a lot of flexibility that way, but we are always talking with each other because we're a small staff. We're able to do that. We're always on, texting or whatever with each other. In fact, I think I have like 16 messages here sitting on my phone. I know I'm here, but life goes on. So it's a lot of, it's flexible, and we always say family comes first. I mean, in this situation, just the other day, I had my son into the emergency room which ended up being fine, but thought he had appendicitis, and it was like, oh, I needed somebody to pick up something I was finishing on an article, and yep, that's no problem. So, which is really a great, it's a great setup, and we still get, people are always amazed that we're such a small staff and we do get so much done. We operate with 1.5 million followers and a book on the Wall Street Journalist with 3 people. So it's kind of, you'd think maybe it would be a big machine behind us, and it's really not. Like I was just down in Kearney, Nebraska. Before I went to Omaha a couple of weeks ago, I stopped and visited her house for the first time and met her family for the first time. And it's just small. We're just working out of, she has a home office. I just kind of work wherever in my house and do it here and there when the baby's napping or in between. So it's flexible, but it is, I am busy with it, as there's always something to be, an email to be answering, especially with the book. The book has been, in the last 2 months, I would say, really very busy. And we were a year and a half ago when we were working on the manuscript, I did the editing with a developmental editor. So she and I went back and forth with edits on like a Google Doc or whatever. So we'd go through each section and do the commenting and suggesting and stuff, which was fun. But while we did that, it was right when I had my baby, because he was born in March last year. And then in April of last year, my husband had brain surgery. So he had bacterial meningitis a few months earlier. So there was a lot going on. We kind of joked that it was the book, the brain, and the baby were all going on in my life at the same time. So it was a little crazy, but it got done. And that's I think another testament to working for a small company like that. We all just kind of pick up each other's slack when we need to, and sometimes you do things that aren't in your job description necessarily, but that's the way it goes, and it gets done. So yeah, it's a busy time. It's busy to work on those things, but you know how that goes. It's, you're just kind of always working. When are you not working? That's the better question. When are you not working? So, yeah. So where is everybody from here? I don't know who. I see who's commenting. We've got Becky, Brenda, Carrie, Angie, Andrea. So that's, Bismarck. Okay, Bismarck and Moorhead. Brenda's in Moorhead. And where does everybody work? Or what do you, oops, I'm going to tip this thing over. Carrie's in Fargo. Carrie Ware, former journalist. Jessica in Grand Forks. Danielle, I used to work with Danielle. Danielle and I worked together for a brief moment in time at a magazine publishing company in Fargo. That was kind of in between my TV days and my what I'm doing now. Bismarck, yeah, very nice. Well, that's fun. Yeah, let's see. Communications PR for a construction company. Oh, and he self-published a book. Very cool. Not cool enough to have an actual book. You could. And actually, we get questions from people who say, should I get an agent? Because that's a lot. Anyone can publish a book now. You can upload it, I think, on Amazon. I don't know what you did, Andrea, if you self-published it and did it through Amazon's platform, or there's a few other things out there, but they'll say, oh, I'm not big enough to have an agent. And I always say, why not? try. You know, it's not necessarily what it used to be with you have to have a certain following or anything like that. It helps, but it's not a non-starter. So if you can find an agent, and there's tons of them out there, I get that book. I'm telling you, that book was amazing. It's called The Complete Guide to Literary Agents, and I read the whole thing. It kind of has them all listed of who are maybe in your category or in your specific niche that you're working in. And if you find somebody to help kind of believe in your project, they have been invaluable to us. We've worked with them now for almost 3 years, and they give us a lot of feedback. They give us a lot of ideas. They helped us kind of think through things a little differently, maybe pushed us to consider other things and how we set it up. So yeah, I always say it's worth looking into if you're doing that. Let's see. Marketing director from the Grand Forks Public Library. Oh, cool. Yes. Internal communications, Amazon. Yeah, and Barnes & Noble does the same, right? So they do the same thing with self-publishing. You can do any of that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting process. There are about a million different ways to go about doing a book. And not all of them obviously end up on the Wall Street Journal. And people ask us that. They're like, are you surprised at how well it's doing? And it sounds really bad, kind of, to say, but we're not, because we have believed in this project for so long, and we know the power of the stories, and we just know how authentic it is and how real it is, and how I think even now we need that so much just to connect with each other, to say, and just even that you can pick it up, put it down. It's short stories. It's things you can take with you when you're going. Maybe you talk about it, it makes you think about your own experience or your own. We say it's if you're a mother, if you have a mother or you know a mother, it's for you. So that really covers everybody. So we're thrilled, obviously, at how it's doing, but are we surprised? Not really. Which sounds really funny, but it's not. And it's not because of us. We always say too, it's bigger. It's not us. It's not about Herbie from home or about Leslie, who's the named author, or me or any of us trying to get famous or anything. It's just there's such powerful connection that comes through storytelling, through good storytelling. And I think that's really what it's about. So it's doing well, I think, because people crave that. I think that's something that is, it's just something everyone can easily relate to say, I want to sit and read good stories. So yeah.
Is the income from the book basically supporting the website, or do you have special things you want to do with it?
Yeah.
How is the website supported?
Well, we have an ad service that we work through, so a national ad service. So that's how we get them based on views from the website. So that's the main income from there. We've done some other partnerships and things like that, not so much anymore, but mainly ad revenue through Google. We do a lot with Google Analytics and watching all those numbers and all the things. The book actually was so in the traditional publishing there, you get an advance. So they give it an amount that is an advance. And so we've made, now I think we finally they dispersed it in 3 different disbursements. So we got those 3 payments, and then you don't make anything more on that until they recoup what they paid you for the advance. So there's potentially more royalties coming hopefully down the line, but that's sort of the way that I think most traditional publishers set it up. And yeah, we've really taken it and reinvested it back into future books, because we have a lot of plans for other, I don't know what should be next. Grandma, like we've got grandma, there's anything you think of it, we could probably do it. We said when we got 500 some submissions at the beginning, we could have published 3 books right at the beginning, because we had so many great, strong submissions. And it wasn't even that they weren't good enough. It was just, you got to build content around a balanced sort of book. You can't have everything be a sad, make you want to cry piece. You can't. So we could have published probably 3 books right off the bat. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to do more. So our agency would think that's possible. So we're hopefully doing that. So I don't know if you have ideas for the next one. We're like, grandma keeps getting floated out there, father, I don't know, daughter, friend, son, there's all kinds of possibilities, really. I don't know. So various things that could do it. Let's see. I want to write a nonfiction book someday, but I have no idea what my story would be. Any tips to dig into that or figure it out? A nonfiction book. Well, I guess I'd say you'd have to figure out your story first. You have to find out what you're most passionate about, maybe, and what is relatable. In my role as an editor, I tell people I preach about relatability all the time. That you might have the most specific to you story that's ever happened, but if you can make it relatable, and like I said, make someone else feel that with you, then I'll read it. You know, think about the things that you like reading. You sit and read a long article or, you know, a long documentary or something. It's because it's something that someone has taken an experience and turned it into something that piques your interest and keeps you interested. So I think I'm big on, because my TV background too, I'm big on just tell me the story. You know, don't fluff it up and make it, you know, pretty words and whatever for a word count. It's just tell me the story, because people appreciate that, I think, now, especially in a busy world where you're going along like that. Let's see, how far ahead are your social posts planned and scheduled? Is that a joint decision, or does one of you focus on that? So we have a couple of, I suppose technically they're VAs, like virtual assistants, that help us schedule that kind of stuff. So I don't do anything with the social scheduling, so that's kind of out of my purview. But we plan generally for, like, I think we schedule everything for the week for the most part. And then kind of bounce around. We do a lot of, if there's timely things that come up, obviously it's sort of a moving target. So what is your advice to someone who has a story to tell but is overwhelmed with where to start? Perfectionist problems. Just get it out there. Start writing. We hear that a lot from people, even with the submissions for the book. It was, oh, I wanted to submit, but I wanted it to be perfect. And we're like, you can't edit something that's not there. So if you just start and go from there, then you have to start somewhere. So I'd say just do it. Sit down, and writing is a muscle, I think. So you have to practice it. It's sometimes easier once you do it a few times, and just get some of that. You can't edit something that's not there. Yeah, that's exactly right. You put it on a needle point. But yeah, I think a lot of people get in their own way sometimes when it comes to this kind of storytelling, or I think a lot of people, and we see this a lot in submissions, struggle with feeling like, well, no one would care. Why would anybody want to read about, you know, I'm not interesting. I have nothing to say. I don't have anything. And really I don't know if you remember Steve Hartman, who's like my favorite TV storyteller, used to do this series called Everybody Has a Story, where he would like throw a dart and then go through the phone book and just pick somebody and go and have to do a story. And they were like, fantastic. You'd like cry at, you know, like, how on earth did you find these people? And he just picked somebody and did a story. So I think that's really, you kind of have to get over yourself a little bit, I think, just to say, you know, no, I do. Even sitting at home, like sometimes, you know, I sit at home with 5 kids and run them all around, but think of the interactions you have with people, or the people you've met, the experiences you've had, the lessons you've learned, the things you've seen, the things that have shaped you are things that you can share with others. And that, I think, helps. I don't know. I'm big into the story. I think stories are so powerful, because that's how we all relate. You know, everything from the beginning of time. Songs are stories. You know, the Bible is a story. Everything is a story. So that's really what connects people and the human experience to each other.
So do you write
yourself? I do. Yeah, I do. I have one in there at the end, but I didn't want to, because I'm so busy with other stuff. And I actually do some kind of ghostwriting for Leslie too. So some of her things are a little bit of my things, and you know, we kind of all are doing it together. But yeah, I do love to write. I do love to write, and I don't have as much time anymore as I would like to for that, because I'm doing so much with everybody else's writing, because I'm doing submissions and things like that. But yeah, I do still enjoy writing.
Do you think you'd ever do a book?
I don't know. People have asked me that too, and now this time I'd probably preach to myself and be like, I should get over myself, because I'm like, I don't have a book to write. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe it would have to be the right one. I'm not sure. Well, I mean, I've had a lot of. If I did, it would probably be something related to just the hard things that have happened in my life, just various, you know. Somebody told me once that even last year, going through my husband, who almost died, he was 36 at the time, and was in the hospital with bacterial meningitis, and then had brain surgery, and we went through the flood, which was a very hard time. We've had just things, and she said, you know, it's interesting, because you've been through a lot of things, but nothing is ever wasted. So that I think that it's been, I don't know, she thought maybe that was something that I was able to kind of take something from it and maybe relate to other people. I had a niece who died when she was 10, 6 years ago. So that's been a hard thing for our family too. So, I mean, there's just, and everybody has that though. You know, you think about that and you're like, you can sit there and think about 4 or 5 things that have gone on in your life that are like, maybe you don't talk about it every day, but it's always kind of back there, maybe driving you or helping you, I don't know, relate to other people. I think, and that's kind of what I think it helps me do in my role as an editor too, is just to be able to relate. You know, I've had a miscarriage, so I can relate a little bit to some of those people. It's just being able to really, like today, I think we've lost this a little bit, and especially online, where we want to say, well, you think differently than I do. Like we disagree on, you know, whatever it is, whatever topic it is. So that means I have to hate you. Like we disagree. So I can't be around you. And we fight for that space at Her View from Home, that it's, you and I might think differently, and I love you, you know, and I still think you're worth sitting down, and let's sit down and have a hot dish and, you know, eat some cheese and let me just hear your story and why you feel so passionately about that. Because we stay away from controversy. We try not to get on either side, but I think there's a way to talk about those hard things without, you just have to come to it from a point where I might disagree with you, and I probably do on many things, you know, we can sit and figure it out, but you can learn. And that's where you open your heart and your mind and you say, I've never thought about that way, or I can't, you know, that's your experience that is powerful to say, well, now I understand that a little bit more. And it's that idea that I think you're wrong and I love you. You know, like it's not, I think you're wrong, so I can't associate with you. So that's a piece that we try to really hold on to too. And it's hard because you get people who want to put you in a corner one way or the other. You know, that's always the push, is to try to say, yeah, what's your stand on this, or what's your, so we fight for that because that's important. So.
Do you get feedback from your viewers on the website, or just mostly on social media?
Mostly social media. Yeah, I don't even think we have comments on articles anymore, like on the actual website, just because we don't have the staff to moderate that kind of thing. Because the internet brings out the keyboard warriors sometimes, you know, people who think they'll say something on a keyboard that they'd never think about saying to you in person, because, you know, there's a certain anonymity behind a keyboard that makes you falsely brave or stupid maybe. So we get some of that. We actually, like I say, we fight pretty hard to keep that out of all of our, I mean, we miss some of it, but it's, you know, there's a little moderation that goes on in that regard, but yeah.
I love to see when it self-moderates, right?
Yeah,
Like
and that's
Jill will make a comment,
right?
positive comment, right?
Right.
And somebody else, and so the
Yeah.
other voice.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny. So we've had, even in the book, we've had, like I said, it's been really well received. We have one comment that has one review that's bad, that's been left, and it's wrong. Like they don't even pay their writers and they blah, blah, blah. And we're like, well, and everybody kind of sees it and goes, oh, I feel sorry for that person, you know, and so we didn't try to take it down or anything, because we're like, well, it's good for people to see what, you know, and I have a story about that, even something I wrote years ago where I put it on the website, and it was another person who didn't write for us at the time had seen it. It was something about, I don't know, a hard time with one of my kids and feeling grateful still at the end of the day that they were my kids and that I was able to work through that with them. And she wrote her own blog post about, I can't stand this person who wrote this thing and whatever. And I sent her a message and said, I feel for you. And I'd love, she was a great writer. So I said, I'd love for you to write for the website, first of all. And I invited her to write, said, I sensed some hurt in your story. And turns out her husband had just died 2 months ago. And she ended up writing for us, and, you know, is a fantastic writer and has now gotten remarried and whatever. But even there, just to be able to say, people usually lash out from hurt, not from, you know, just wanting to be mean. So if you can take yourself out of it, say, I'm not going to get, you know, offended by that, and say, what, you know, I'm sorry that you're, you know, something really must be hurting you. You know, I'd love to hear about it. And so that was yeah, I don't know, just powerful stories, I think. And yeah, and someday, she lives in Washington, D.C., so we're going to get together someday. So that'll be fun. But yeah, I don't know if there's any other
questions?
Brenda has to jump off, she said. Oh, great. Oh, I'm glad you came. Adding photos, printed books. Yeah. Photos are expensive in books. That would be my feedback on that. no photos in here. It's a it's one color, but you use it kind of as a gradient. So it's, something like that has design elements, but it's all one color. It's very expensive. That's my thought. I'd love to if we could, but that's very expensive and it makes it kind of out of the price point for people. So yeah, so that is no fun. That is no fun, but the dollar speaks. So you'd rather go buy a book for $20 than for $35. So,
Yeah, right.
unless it's a very specific coffee table book or something like that. So, but even that was interesting. There's so many different options on, what size for my business. So we literally just went to Barnes and Noble with our publishers and they said, what do you like? They had us, what do you like? What don't you like? And they took notes and said, okay, let's work from there. So, yep. Writer submit. Nope. We use a stock image service for our submissions. We do take personal photos though, so sometimes we do. Yeah, nice to meet you. So either. So I think that's all the questions. Okay.
Switch back over here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for everyone who logged in. This will be posted online, so if you know somebody a member who's interested and missed it, we will eventually have that recording up online. But thank you all.